I have buried 3 kings and crowned 2 more, and I tell you plainly that nothing in 40 years of court service prepared me for a 6-year-old girl who would not eat. I am Ossian Thale, regent-in-waiting of the Ethernal Compact, and when the Vesh ring came apart in the war, I was given a duty no protocol had ever written down. Keep the last living heir of House Ilthane alive until someone higher than me could decide what to do with her. Her name was Vesper. Her parents were gone. Her home was a debris field. And for 9 days, in the mud and canvas of the Hallworth relief camp, she would not let a single soul touch her. We tried everything a court knows how to try. Our finest physician, a man who had treated 3 generations of Ilthane royalty, examined her burns from a distance, because she screamed if he came within arm's reach. Our eldest nurse, gentle as anyone I have known, sang the old cradle songs of the ring and was answered with silence and a stare that could crack stone. A priestess of the 6th house performed the naming rites meant to soothe a frightened child's spirit, and Vesper turned her face to the tent wall and did not turn back until the woman left. I watched 12 years of my nation's finest care fail against one small girl sitting cross-legged on a cot, arms wrapped around her own knees, and I began, God forgive me, to fear she simply would not survive the wanting of it. She had stopped speaking entirely by the 5th day. Not just to us, to anyone. She would drink water if it was left within her reach, and no one watched her do it. She would not sleep lying down, only curled upright against the tent pole, as though lying flat meant surrendering something she could not afford to give up. Our physician told me, in the careful language court men use when they mean to say they have failed, that there was nothing more medicine could do for a wound that wasn't in the body. The camp was human-run, a relief consortium, mostly Earth volunteers, doing the unglamorous work nobody's home fleet wanted to spend soldiers on. I did not expect anything from them, I will say that plainly, because I want you to understand how little I expected, and how wrong I was. His name was Joss Kestrel, a field medic, mid-40s, quiet in the particular way of men who have already seen the worst a war can do, and no longer feel the need to announce it. He wore no rank I recognized, carried a battered kit bag with the strap mended twice over in mismatched thread, and moved through the camp with the unhurried competence of a man restocking shelves, not saving lives, though he did plenty of both, I would learn, without ever seeming to notice the difference. He had a habit of talking to no one in particular while he worked, a running, half-audible commentary to a bandage, a cracked rib, a broken cot leg, the same tone whether the patient was a decorated fleet officer or a stray dog that had wandered in from the wire fence. On the 10th morning I found him sitting on an overturned crate outside Vesper's tent, eating. Not performing anything, not approaching her, just sitting 3 meters off, unwrapping a ration bar, plain, gray, the kind his consortium handed out by the crate, and eating it slowly, the way a tired man eats when there's nowhere he needs to be. He did not look at her tent, he did not speak to her. When he finished half the bar, he set the rest down on the crate beside him, wrapped loosely in its foil, and went back to changing a bandage on an old woman's hand 2 cots over, humming something low and off-key under his breath. I nearly told him to move along. I did not, because I had run out of better ideas, and because there is a particular exhaustion that makes a man willing to watch anything twice. I remember thinking it was almost an insult, the plainness of it, that after priestesses and physicians and a decade of court schooling in the care of royal children, the next attempt would be a stranger eating his dinner 3 meters off and not even looking at her. He did the same thing the next evening, and the one after that. By the 4th evening, the ration bar was gone from the crate before he returned to collect it. He never mentioned it, never looked pleased with himself, never glanced toward the tent to check his work, which is, I have come to believe, precisely why it worked. He was not performing rescue. He was a tired man eating his dinner where he always ate it, humming a tune that meant nothing to anyone, sharing what he had because that was simply what you did with food when there was more of it than you needed, and someone nearby had none. On the 7th evening, I watched Vesper's small shape appear at the tent flap. She did not go to him, she went to the crate. She sat on the ground beside it, not beside him, and ate in silence while he hummed and did not look up. On the 9th evening, he was changing a dressing on his own forearm, a shallow burn from a generator fire 2 days prior, and his hands, I noticed, were not quite steady with the wrap. Vesper watched him fumble it for a full minute. Then she stood, crossed the 3 meters that had taken her 7 days to close, and took the gauze out of his hands herself, and wound it properly, the way, I learned later, the physician had once shown her how to bandage her own doll. Joss said nothing but "thank you" in the flat, unremarkable tone he used for everything, and let her finish. That was the door. Once it opened, it did not close again. By the 11th day, she let him look at her arm. By the 13th, she sat pressed against his side while he worked, silent, watching his hands the way a smaller child watches rain. He never asked her a single question about the ring, never once tried to draw the grief out of her with a kind word, the way we all had. He simply kept being exactly what he had been on the crate, unhurried, unimpressed with himself, present. I began, without meaning to, arranging my own rounds to pass his corner of the camp more often than duty required. I told myself it was oversight, the proper vigilance of a regent charged with an heir's safety. It was not. I wanted, I think, simply to watch it keep working, the way a man who has nearly drowned will stand at the shoreline afterward just to watch the water behave itself. I asked him, once, where a relief camp medic had learned to sit so still around a frightened child. He told me he'd raised 2 of his own, grown and settled on a colony 3 systems off now, doing fine, and that most of what he knew about scared children he'd learned from them long before this war ever started. He said grief didn't care much what flag was flying when it happened, and neither, in his experience, did a child who'd lost everything but her own 2 hands. He said this the way he said everything, flatly, without asking for anything back, and went on rewrapping a coil of tubing, as if he hadn't said a thing worth remembering. I asked him once, plainly, what he thought he was doing that a royal physician and a court priestess had not. He shrugged and said he wasn't doing anything, said scared things. Kids, dogs, wounded soldiers, didn't much matter. Don't trust being reached for. They trust being nearby. He said it the way a man states the weather, then went back to counting bandages. On the 16th night, I was drafting the letter that would send Vesper to the Central Court, to be raised properly among her mother's cousins, with all the ceremony a lost heir deserves. I read the draft aloud to no one in the dim of my own tent, and stopped when I heard, through the canvas wall, a small voice say a word I recognized only because every human parent in that camp had told me what it meant. Papa. I went to the tent flap. Vesper was asleep against Joss Kestrel's side, one small fist closed in the fabric of his sleeve, holding it the way she had held nothing else in 16 days. He sat very still, one arm carefully not moving so as not to wake her, and looked up at me with an expression I can only call helpless. She said it 3 times tonight, he told me, keeping his voice to nearly nothing. I don't know what you want me to do with that. I did not send the letter. I tore it, quietly, that same night, and I have never regretted a decision less. We did not make Joss Kestrel a lord. He would not have taken it, and I no longer believe titles were ever the point of what he did. He stayed on at Hallworth, ration bar and bandage kit and all, and Vesper stayed with him, and twice a week I walk past their tent and hear that same tuneless humming, and a small voice, steadier now, humming along beside it, badly, and happily, out of key. I have buried 3 kings, I crowned 2 more, and I have never in 40 years of court service seen anything move a grieving child the distance that one shared ration bar, and a man too tired to perform kindness carried her, 3 unhurried meters at a time,